Hey, everybody. Yeah, ready to roll. Well, I mean, yeah, they did rear their head again, and obviously the first series of the game, we had a pretty nice drive pieced together, and then which really is irrelevant because we weren't able to finish it. I'd much rather have an uglier drive that finishes with a broken play for a touchdown, than a clean drive and then not able to execute when it matters to get the ball in. And so, you know, um, yeah, obviously, when you look back at things from with hindsight, you say, "Well, was this the right call?" We felt good about the call, and we didn't execute when we needed to execute. And then later in the game, I didn't love the call, on the 4th and 1. Um, Something we'd used earlier in the game on 3rd and 1, and Caden had thumped through there for I think 3 on the first series of the drive, but a little bit different circumstance. 4th and 1. And we just didn't. I didn't do a good job putting our guys in good position, and we didn't execute. And that's a bad combination. And so, but obviously, those things have to be addressed and continue to put more emphasis on those situations to where we can execute better, and I can put our guys in a better position in those situations.
It seems like that first drive of the game, you got dribble, sustained drive, and sustained the drive, move the ball, and multi-play 10, 8, 9 plays. And then the rest of the first half, it kind of stalls out. What do you think's behind that? How do you guys fix that?
Well, I think 6 of our 12 drives were 3 and out, and that's no way to put together a good offensive game. You just can't do that. And so, obviously, getting the first down is a critical part of offensive football. And to your point, early in the game, we seem to do better, in that regard than we do sometimes in the middle of the lull. We're very up and down, in that regard. And so obviously it's my job to peel back all those layers and to figure out what is the root cause of those things. And not to sound like a broken record, but really the root cause is a multitude of things, and which has got to stop. It's like an execution here by this position player or this position person. And then, maybe them having a little bit better call than I have on for our team. And so, it's a myriad of things. It's not one thing. It's not one person. It's not one situation. Regardless of that, that's irrelevant. Is we've got to sustain drives better. We've got to do better. We got to execute better. We've got to have. We just got to be better. And that's such a vague statement and such a press conference statement, but that's just the truth. We have to execute better to stay on the field, to be able to sustain drives, to give our chance to go score and give ourselves a chance to go score.
There's specific reasons why you don't feel comfortable with the quarterback under center, or at least Coach Bielema kind of indicated that up until now that has not been something that the staff has been comfortable with.
Yeah, I think we talked about that last week a little bit. Obviously felt comfortable enough to go underneath, on 3rd and 1, and so I think that was a real strong indicator. And I know in my mind, I didn't even flinch on that one. I think so. We've really made some strides in the last couple of weeks, of being comfortable to where it felt really strongly about the no concern for the ball security. And so that's something, obviously, as we went back and studied some of the things we did last year, even, like we were under there just a little bit more. And so I think that's obviously something that we're looking at. And in those situations in particular, that was the first time that's really showed up. I think 2 actually ran a sneak, I believe, against FAU for a first down underneath. And so we've just been underneath there a handful of times, but that's something that we're to the point. I think we're beyond comfortable at that point, or at this point. And so something that we need to inject a little bit more into our offense.
As you discuss the offensive line, what are your biggest concerns right now about execution up front?
Well, I mean, I think my biggest concern is making sure I'm putting our guys up front in a situation to be successful, right? I mean, I think we know, obviously we knew going into the week last week what our lineup was going to be, and some new faces and some new places again. And but I think we're to the point now, this far into the season, that we have a really strong feeling of an understanding of what some strengths and weaknesses are there, and everybody's got them. And then I'm talking about just the line. I'm talking about everybody across in football. Everybody's got strengths and weaknesses, any team, and ours are as well. And so, I think the conversation mostly steers around, or is centered around, how do we can minimize the weaknesses and maximize our strengths there from the offensive line standpoint. because it all, everything that we do on any offense runs through the lens of the guys up front. And so that's kind of been the focus of our conversations.
So we'll learn more about Reggie from Coach Bielema, but without Josh, for sure, like how is your run game affected with maybe fewer options?
Well, I mean, obviously you're thinner, in the room, but I think to this point of the season, I think I would feel differently if it was week 0 or week 1 where we didn't have a chance to really understand maybe who everybody else was in that room. But I think we're to the point now with Caden and Aiden and, Nick Fidanzo, a guy that's ran for us in spring quite a bit in fall camps. And so I'm very comfortable with what those guys bring to the table. And so, but again, it's about me coordinating the offense to play to the strengths of those guys when they're in the game, because I think they're more than capable to help bolster us and to help us run the ball effectively.
Talk about exploring changes or conversations. What have those circled around for you guys in the last few days?
Well, I mean, a bunch of things, a whole bunch of things. Some scheme related, some personnel related. Some, way we go about our business in the course of a week, practice structure, a script. I think at this point, when things aren't going the way that we want them to go, I think you have to always really examine everything that you're doing. How you're preparing practice, and what the volume of plays that you're carrying, or the different schemes that you're carrying. Are they playing to the strengths? So it's a full blown introspection of or inspection, I should say, of from everything from A to Z. And so our conversations have centered around Coach and I's conversations, and to us as a staff have centered around, what we need to do to help improve the offensive output. And so I think he's given some real clear communication in that regard, and it's not been anything but positive as far as the insight and the point of view that he's coming from. And so we've had some really good conversations, and so we're ready to go this week to make some of those small tweaks that some people might not notice with the naked eye, but certainly internally what we do and how we're going about doing it would be a little bit different for our players and for our staff in some areas.
Distinct about Maryland's defense?
Very athletic and big and strong. I mean, and very straightforward in the way they play. They're very confident in their scheme. They have multiplicity within their scheme, like a good Big Ten defense does. But I've been really impressed with the way they play. I mean, they're very systematic in their approach. There's not a lot of surprises of where they're going to line up and where they're going to be, and they take great pride in that. So it'll be a great challenge for us.
On the outside, we can see some different people, especially younger guys, specifically like National Hollins, Malik Gelsey, Curry Welcher, or do you think what you have on the outside is good enough to move the football and score?
Oh, I think our outside receivers are playing well. Yeah, I think Casey has really played well. Love the way he's led and not flinched and set a strong jaw, and been a great influence for us. And Pat continues to make plays each week. And so obviously in some of those plays have gone to some of the young guys through rotation naturally, during the game, 2-minute, just a natural rotation. But our guys, Casey, Pat, and Isaiah, those first 3 guys and 11 personnel, I feel great about their ability to play and affect the game in the Big Ten. And I think they've already proven that. And my confidence is through the roof with those guys on the perimeter.
How would you assess Luke Altmaier through the first 6 games?
Well, I would say that he's really made some spectacular plays and had some really good moments. And he's had things that need to get corrected, or there's plays that he would have back. Obviously, I think the most glaring thing is just the totality of ball security, which is an incredibly important aspect of playing quarterback. I do think that's leveled off for him in the last few weeks. Obviously, had one the other night that was forced in a moment that didn't need to be forced. I think he's made some strides in that area for sure. And we're learning more and more about him on a weekly basis. And I think the he's competing really hard. And the last several games, I mean, he's we're throwing the ball 40 or 45 times a game, and he's running and scrambling and getting first downs. And so I think his performance, I'm I'm not going to put a letter grade on it, but it's been up and down. But I've been really impressed with some of the moments, and you can see his ability. He's becoming a better leader for us, and but ultimately, he and I have the same job, to get us in the end zone, and that's what we have to do, and that's how you're measured in this business and in football games is offensively, and the quarterback is you getting your team in the end zone. So we've got to improve in that area. But I do like the way Luke is playing and competing. Is it perfect? No. Is there things to get corrected? For sure there are every game, especially when you have the ball and you're making that many decisions in a game. But we need to have a good week this week. We do. And that goes without saying, but I think he's in a good spot as far as what he feels and sees in our offense. And we're continuing to try to build around his strengths.
It seemed to me that you guys had an emphasis on quicker throws on Friday night. How do you feel like that played, and maybe what didn't state the obvious, but what went into maybe changing that?
Yeah, we certainly made an concerted effort to get rid of the ball quicker. Obviously, we'd been hanging on the ball a little bit, too much drop back, especially on early downs. Now, when it's when you get to third and long, and we were even cautious going into the game in the long category last week. We just wanted to make sure we had shored up our protection and not continue to put our guys, especially considering a new lineup, not continue to put our line, our quarterback, and our back in a stressful situation of 3rd and 8 and 9 and 10 when you're opening yourself up to the exotic fronts, right? And so everybody in this league, when you get beyond 5 or 6 yards, usually they know it's a 80 or 90% pass opportunity, so they can get a little bit more exotic in the way they fit, twist, and cover and those things. So it makes it difficult, and we're having too many of those. So we did level that off the other day, and I think that was positive for us. We got rid of the ball quicker. Our quick game was good for us. So I thought that was a good move for us, and I thought our guys overall responded in the right way and protected the quarterback better, partly because of that.
When you do that, does that limit you schematically? Does that force you to get more creative schematically? How does that kind of affect you when you're?
I'm sorry, I missed that one more time.
No, it's cool. You kind of talked about putting the offensive line in the best spot.
Yeah.
Does that limit you schematically? Does that force you to get more creative schematically? How does that kind of affect you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it can limit you. But I think we got enough versatility within our system that we can certainly find things. It may be just as simple as saying, let's get off of this scheme and let's insert and substitute this scheme for that. And so I don't really think it limits you. I said it did to some degree, but I think that's just part of being a coordinator in football. Is you're always trying to maximize your strengths and minimize your weaknesses. And every team I've ever been a part of it had those, and has those. And so ours is obviously no different. So I think you just have to maybe be a little bit more creative and have a little bit more conversation and make sure you're being a little bit more thorough and about the positions you put your guys in.
Coach, when you're struggling like you are on offense, you worry about finger pointing and all that kind of stuff. Have you seen that, or is that not happening now?
No, I've been really impressed with the way our guys have just continued to go to work and carry themselves on a daily basis. And, that's obviously everybody in our building. Everybody in our building wants a better result, and that's very disappointing when you put a week of work in and attention to detail and prepare yourself for the game, and it didn't happen. And so what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to feel sorry for yourself or point fingers or, look out, like I've said before, look out the window, or are you going to look in the mirror? And I think I'm very confident, and we've got a bunch of guys in our building, coaches and players alike, that are all looking in the mirror to see what can I do to help our offense get on track. And if that's the case, and I believe it's the case, I know it's the case, then we're going to break through at some point, and we're going to put a week of work together and a plan together and go dig deep. And these times will challenge you, and it's one of the beauties of the game. It's not what we want. We certainly would much rather be flourishing than struggling. I promise you that. But when you do struggle, and you are fledgling a little bit, that when you break through, there's nothing more rewarding. And so I know that we've got a bunch of guys that are believing like that, and it'll be a challenge this week. It's not going to be easy, I mean, going on the road against a really good Maryland team. But that aside, I've been really proud of the coaches and the guys and the players on our side of the ball, and the other side of the ball too. They've continued to stay encouraged despite our lack of performance, and I'm confident that we're going to get through this. Well, I've been through it before. I'm not here, obviously. I see the way our guys work, and I know we have enough talent. I know we have, I think, a scheme that can help us. We saw that last year to some degree. This early part of the year and the middle part of the year, we had some really good performances, and so in this league, and so I think a lot of the signs are there that we're not as far off as what maybe somebody would think or on the outside would think or looking at it. Yeah, we have some deficiencies. We have some challenges. I got to do a better job, but the fix is not far off. There's a razor thin line between success and failure in this game, in this business, in this league. And we've been on the other side of that too often. And getting on that other side of that line is it's not very difficult, but it's not necessarily easy either. And that's kind of a strange statement, but it's all laid out there before you. We got to execute better. I got to put my guys in a better position. And then to get our moment to break through, we need, that would be a big bolster to our confidence. And that's what we need right now.
Friday night. Is the run game, especially in the last three quarters, a product of you guys just not executing, or Nebraska saying, we're just not going to let you do that? You're going to have to beat us another way.
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. I mean, Nebraska was a very unique preparation because of the multiplicity of their fronts, and having some new faces in there added to some of the complexity there, and played a little bit more man coverage to make sure that we weren't getting free run yardage, and the little bit more man than they had played before. And so, again, like, we had some nice runs, like the first run of the game. It was an awesome run. We had some other surfaces that were there, but there was just too many times we were just off a guy, just off one guy, and that's all it takes. I mean, against a good defense in our league and playing our league, if you're not all in sync, you don't have all 11. Really, you could say 12, starting with me. Making sure I'm putting them in the right position with the play call. If you don't have all 12 guys, on the same page in that regard, it's hard to move the ball, and that was certainly the case, Friday night.
Coming into fall camp, you guys were very concerned about the offensive line. I guess, when did that crop up for you guys in the offseason as something to be concerned about?
Well, I mean, I think just, through the course of graduation and guys that left, and after spring football and evaluation, I think we knew that, we had some probably, we're a little thin there. And then we kind of maybe complicated that a little bit it got complicated a little bit with some injuries and guys nicked up during fall camp, and the continuity of the line, a little bit inconsistent. And so, and that's kind of, they've kind of, I think every position group to some degree, I don't know if that's a fair statement or not, but we just haven't been as consistent as we need to be there, and had flashes, and we have grit, and we have some toughness, and we got to get more continuity. And again, we got to help play to our guys' strengths a little bit better in that regard, because I'm confident we've got, whoever it is, we got guys in there that are going to give everything they've got, and they're going to play with good detail and be coached well by Bart, and they're going to give us everything they got to help get this thing back on track. And so I don't remember the exact timeline on that. I know that we've had some conversations. There were some concerns, but we always evaluate and kind of nitpick all those, to see, what we feel about our personnel grouping. So I don't know if that was necessarily any more of a conversation than other groupings were. Yep. Appreciate everybody.
What's up, fellas? How y'all doing, man? Hope all is well. Good to see you guys. Yeah. I'm letting y'all take over this time. I think, it's obviously it's always been a point of emphasis for us, but some guys naturally just have that instinctive mindset and ability. I think Kanina's one of those guys, right? I think our linebacking core they're trying to punch at the ball every opportunity they get. And so from the time we started spring ball, from the time we got here, there's always been a huge emphasis on like the ball is the most important thing. The ball is the most important thing. And there were we had a cut up of just some opportunities of the ball being exposed and guys taking on their blocks, getting off their blocks, right? Trying to make an effort to get the ball out. Like at the end of the day, like we're trying to give our offense as many possessions as possible. And so we're always trying to have that mindset of, okay, how can we gain another possession to take in taking the ball away? And so I thought just overall, I thought guys would just try to capitalize on that. And it worked this past game for us. Obviously, the games prior to that, we hadn't had as many, you know. And so every week we go into practice, there's always an emphasis on that. And I think you know, they come in threes, right? Takeaways come in threes, and I think it ended up being that way because guys were forcibly every opportunity we got, and then coming on the sideline, let's not forget about the ball. Let's not. So just constantly reminding them every time they came over, and we had some guys make some really good plays on that. Yeah, 100%, man, because I think it just provides that spark. You know, every time we were in those situations to gain turnovers, or every time we were on the field to play defense, guys just had this sense of urgency. Like, hey, we got to take this ball back. It was no looking around. Like, we got to take this ball back. We got to get the ball back as fast as we can. And if we do get it back, we got to try to score with it, you know? And so I think guys really, really bought into that. You know, not that they didn't buy into it in the other weeks, but there was always a sense that during the course of this game, we're going to win this game. We're going to win this game. And so I think when the ball was being taken away, right, there was like, how can we go and score? How can we advance the ball and get it down the field? A couple of times, obviously, it was on the ground. We just jumped on it. But that's the whole mindset just from our defensive perspective of just trying to get it back as many times as we can. And naturally, I think once one occurs and they see the fruits of their labor when one occurs, that's when you start getting 2, 3, and 4, and the sky's the limit from there.
Wanting to bring some pressure and also not wanting to put young DBs out on the island.
Yeah, it's obviously it's definitely a thin line, you know, because you try to balance between, okay, we can't be in coverage all day. Well, the way you're not in coverage all day is you try to bring more than they can block, right? Knowing that you're going to be in coverage at some standpoint. Then you try to just mix it up. Okay, well, maybe we don't bring pressure this time and we play a form of zone. And so it's just trying to play a cat and mouse game between myself and their quarterback, you know, based on the looks that I've been seeing throughout the week and on film, you know. And so I think a couple of times they thought that we were bringing pressure, and he kind of threw into a zone coverage, and we were able to make a play on it. And times he thought I was bringing or playing zone, and we were bringing pressure. It kind of surprised. So just always trying to keep him on his toes, man. Like, obviously we got different players this year than we had last year, just from a coverage standpoint, and they're younger guys. And so how can I allow our guys up front to obviously affect the quarterback and trying to get hands on them as soon as possible, so we don't have to be in coverage that long, man. It is a fine line, man. And there isn't always a suitable answer to that. It's just, I'm just trying to change the picture every chance I get. Like, if I think that they know that I'm bringing pressure, I try to do the opposite. You know what I'm saying? Based on the down and distance, based on, I think it was at one point in time, I think it was like a 3rd and 6 and or 3rd and 8. We had been playing man to man every third down at that point, and he assumed I was bringing some pressure, and we actually had a 3-man rush. 3-man rush almost got home, and Xavier gets an interception. You know, and so it's a cat and mouse game, and just not always trying to be perfect, but put our guys in a position where we're kind of showing pressure and we can get out of it, and vice versa. So it's I wish I can pinpoint it and tell you that that it's 60-40 or that it's 70-30, but it's not. It's literally 50-50, and it's based on what I'm seeing off their formation, or based on what I'm seeing in the flow of the game. You know, you can study an opponent throughout the course of the week, and their breakdown, they come into the game and they're a tad bit different than they show you on film, because they watch film as well. They watch tape as well. And so just always trying to be a step ahead, you know, and trying to change it up for the quarterback whether they think we're bringing pressure or they think we're dropping guys out. constantly trying to change that picture for the quarterback, and it's going to be very huge that I do it obviously this week because the quarterback at Maryland, he's different. He's a really good player. Yeah, it's the prep has been going well. Obviously, we're still in it, you know, like we're not going to get completely away from what we do as a whole, but we're going to have tweaks in our game plan where we allow guys to, whether that's bring more than they can block or presenting a picture of bringing more than they can block and getting guys out of there or showing and bringing them. And so just always, my goal is to always just change the picture for him, right? Because I know he's a very intelligent quarterback, right? And he's trying to diagnose things before the ball is snapped and he's trying to get a feel for what he thinks we're in, right? And he has throws that he'll go to if he thinks we're in a zero pressure. He has throws that he'll go to if he thinks that we're in a drop 8 coverage. And so my goal is to try to make that as hard as possible for him. But not only is he good, the cats around him are just as talented. You know what I'm saying? And so he has some really good weapons on the outside. And giving our guys, trying to give our guys an advantage up front in rushing the passer when they do throw the ball, because I mean they're not trying to hide what they do, right? They got really talented group of running backs, but their quarterback he's going to play on Sunday, right? And they want to get him in a position to where he can throw that ball and air that thing out. They are going to run the football, but they are centered and focused around airing it out and throwing the ball around a little bit. And so because they got some talented dudes out there at wide receiver, and their tight end group is ridiculous, right? Their backs out of the backfield can catch the ball extremely well. And so this is going to be a really, really good matchup for us. I do like our ability to match up with them, but more importantly, I like our ability to my ability in trying to confuse the quarterback and just give them different pictures and allow those 4 guys up front, 5 guys up front to try to get after them a little bit. Yeah, man. I mean, I think it's right. Like, obviously, the first drive, you would want to keep them down there, but they obviously decided to take a shot. That was a one-on-one matchup. You know, we've been talking about all week winning your one-on-one matchups, and I have to do a better job at putting our players in a position, right, to knowing that we have a different group of guys, not exposing them to that one-on-one matchup. Right. Maybe it was a little more zone there, right? That I could have helped that young man. Right. At times we are going to be in one-on-one matchups, but that was a 2nd and 10 play. 2nd and 10 was a get back on track for them, and they were heavy pass. Right. I could have definitely helped that young man in that situation. In terms of with a call to put him in a position to where he didn't have to just live on an island and play man to man. And obviously you learn those things as the game kind of progresses and you get a feel for it, right? We were playing a lot of man, end up going to a little more zone as the game kind of progressed, because they were making some really, really good catches in one-on-one coverage, right? Obviously we had some young guys out there covering them, but they were making some great catches, right? They're on scholarship as well. They got good players as well. And so just trying to give our guys an opportunity to, okay, we're going to play man. We're going to play a little bit of zone. We're going to sprinkle in some man. Okay, we're going to be heavier zone on this picture. And so, again, I think that falls squarely on my shoulders and putting that young man in a better situation on that, put him in a better call on that situation, because it was a backed up. They were on a 1-yard line, 2-yard line, right? That's heavy, take a shot scenario, right? To kind of help them out. I thought they were going to try to run the ball and end up punting it and get themselves some room because they had shown that. But kudos to them taking a shot down the field. The receiver made a heck of a catch, right? Again, that's a 50-50 ball. You hope that they fall in our favor more often than not. And in that particular situation, it fell in their favor. Obviously, it ended up leading to 3 points that drive, which in those situations you would like not to have any points, but that squarely falls on my shoulders.
Pretty good game from the inside backers, and that was without Tariq. So do you feel like they've turned the corner a little bit?
Oh, dude, those guys played lights out, man. They were flying to the ball. They were making plays. I felt like from a schematic standpoint, us jumping in and out of 3 and 4 down, it kind of created an element of confusion for our opponent to a degree. And it allowed them just to play free, man. Like it was no thinking. I think that was the smallest my call sheet had been, all right, in like the last 3 weeks, you know, and they knew everything that was taking place. They knew when it was happening, and they were able to fly to the ball. And I think with the way they played and executed from that position, I think that kind of showed, they're just fearless dudes, man. Like the way Kanena played, the way Dylan Rosiak played, the way Cruz played. Like I was so proud of those guys, man, because like to see the growth that they've made from the first game to now, they're definitely getting better, and they're becoming leaders and catalysts for this defense. The message to recruits as a whole, man, is right. I think anytime you're building something, right, and anytime you're trying to grow something, people oftentimes expect instantaneous results, right? We obviously had success last year, right? Like that's clear as day, right? But from the success we had last year, they don't realize that those guys had to go through their own struggles and their own experience prior to us getting here, right? And from those struggles and that experience that they had, they were able to learn from it, which in turn resulted in to them not only playing well for us the latter part of their career, but ultimately parlayed to them getting drafted. People oftentimes want to look at the final product or what they deem as the final product and say that's what it is. Well, we are a developmental program. That's what it is, right? There's no bones about it. We got to continue to develop our roster. We got to continue to put our players in a position to have success. But that's part of the journey, man. Like every year is going to be a new year, right? Like, and that's just, we happen to have for year one, we won 5 games. Year 2, we won 8, right? Right now, obviously we hadn't had that same amount of success as we had year 1. We've lost players. We lost some players, right? That means other players have to step up. Younger players have to grow from those situations. And I think you just keep chopping, man. You keep doing what you're doing from a standpoint, but you have to be able to tweak it. Like what I happen to learn in the last 6 games is, people study our defense, and they are running everything you can think imaginable, right, to understand, right, and how to attack our defense, because they spent the whole offseason studying it. And so we can't live in the defense that we ran last year. 1, we ain't got the same players, and 2, people know how to attack it. And so you got to change the picture. You got to do something a little bit different that people may be uncomfortable with, which is fine. It's fine with them being uncomfortable with that. But this is the potential result you can get from it if you decide to change it or tweak it, and if you decide to live in it. And so it's just my job as the guy that's running the show to be the coordinator and lead us in those, and when we have those opportunities, right? Here's the plan, here's the mission, right? If I'm flying off the cuff every meeting I get, you have guys who aren't going to lead. I will say this about our players, right? It hasn't been what we wanted in terms of the win and loss column, but none of those guys have wavered. And that's credit to our leadership. That's credit to our head coach. That's credit to the guys that we have leading them in our defensive meeting room. And these guys want to do what's right, right? They're going to play hard. I promise you, they're going to play hard every single week. It may not be perfect, but they are going to play hard every single week. And every recruit, right, that is looking at us from this standpoint, right, we're a 2-4 football team. That's clear as day, right? We're going to be better. We're going to be a lot better. Right. But the way you change this is you keep recruiting at a high level and at a high clip. So you have guys that can come in this program and potentially change it. Right. Because at the end of the day, I can make whatever call I want to make. It's the players that make this thing come alive. Kanena Odaluga is a prime example of that. That's a routine call, a routine play call I make 100 times out of 100. And he goes in there and makes a tackle and strips the ball and takes the ball away. That's a credit to that young man. Yeah, I think it's you want to be multiple enough to have enough in your arsenal so that teams don't get a beat on you, but you also have to understand the players that you have out there, right? So Dylan Rosiak hadn't started a lot of games, right, prior to this year. Kanena Odaluga hadn't started a lot of games, right? Zach Toby hadn't started a lot of games. Xavier Scott hadn't started a lot of games. Miles Scott hadn't started a lot of games. Right, we got a bunch of guys who hadn't played a lot of football, right? And so, as I'm looking at the grand scheme of, okay, well, where are we having mental errors at? Okay, we're having mental errors on these calls. Well, let us trim back on this and see how they function and process things when it's just a smaller group of calls. Although teams may have a beat, but that will allow us to play a lot faster, and that will allow us, Kanena, to make plays when they present themselves. And so it is a very fine balance. But I think as a coach, you try to gauge their interest in, hey man, is this too much? Every Friday night at the end of our meeting, I always bring I have all our players, our core group of guys who are playing a lot of ball, and I ask them, is there anything on a call sheet that's going to slow you down? And there's been times there may be a call or two the night before the game, I literally get rid of it and I won't call it. Don't worry about that call. It's not going to be called. If you have questions about it the night before the game, multiple questions, right? I try to get rid of it so that guys can play fast, right? And fly to the ball. It didn't happen this past week, but it's happened prior weeks. And so I think that's a testament to the relationship that we have with a lot of our players, because a lot of players would naturally be afraid because they don't, coach, I don't want to. No, man, this ain't about me. This is about you. And so I think there's always going to be imbalance, but it's from my standpoint, I have to continue to find a way to, okay, based on what I'm seeing, what's the best call or going to allow us to play the fastest and also help us from a schematic standpoint. So that's the game, I guess, of chess you play day in and day out. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, a couple things from an injury standpoint from a week ago to where we are this week. I think on the offensive line, we got a really good chance of having Zai and Geske back. Obviously, they couldn't go on Saturday. Zai, we thought might get there in time, but he just couldn't get there. Geske's improved a lot in a short amount of time, and then got good news today. Des Schuster has been cleared to be involved in practice with us starting tomorrow. So his first practice back with us, so that's some positives in that regard. Running back, obviously, Reggie, doesn't look good at this point for this week, but not ruling it out. But he might be a little bit of time. Did get better today. We obviously haven't hit the grass or taken the field till tomorrow, so really preparing for the idea that he may not be with us, which obviously thrust our two freshmen into a huge role moving forward. And then really from a defense side of the ball, Tariq Barnes was the guy that was a little bit literally hurt himself on the first play a week ago against a Purdue game. Played the game, but really had struggled a couple days after that, and thought he might be able to get in a position to be there on game day. Just wasn't. Eliminated him on literally on game day that he couldn't go. So some positives in that regards. Obviously, still missing quite a few guys and having some guys not get cleared, but hopefully that'll continue to get better as the week goes along. Some things from the game. Obviously, you've already talked to Barry and Aaron. Enough negatives that created us to lose a game that I think things could have bounced our way a little bit. You'd like to have them come forward, but we didn't come out in a positive light. I thought we did make strides. We dramatically reduced the number of penalties. Really have made a conscientious effort to stop eliminating things that have caused us to have failure, and that was a big one. I think also defensively to have our guys go out there so many times in a row. I think it was 5 different series where they were given the ball, not just the series itself, but how they took over. One was after a fumbled kickoff, one was after a block punt, one was after a fumbled completion on third down. They just kept going out there, sawing wood and taking care of business. So hopefully that's a sign of more things good to come in that regard. I know they've worked really hard to get to where they are. Offensively, I think the opening drive was what we kind of practiced all week, and then to have that fail with being just short of the goal line, taking over the ball on the 25-yard line, moving it all the way down to 6-inch line, just set us back. I think we had 6 3-and-outs, and it was hard to find some rhythm. Obviously, right before the half, we did get a little bit of a couple plays there to get on the board, and then just couldn't sustain it, especially with some turnovers that we gave. That the defense gave them an opportunity to capitalize on. We couldn't do it. So that was the tail in the game. I think where we're at right now, we just got to continue to try to find and discover and find new ways to move the ball, score points, and on defense, continue to build our depth, especially with guys getting a little. This is a big week for us, just because it's week 7 of our preparation, right? And to have 6 games behind us, it's important for our guys to stay fresh and be ready to play. We got this, and obviously the Wisconsin game before we get a bye week. So this is the longest stretch of the season for our guys. Physically, we got to be very cognizant of that. I literally go through and on Sundays kind of go back to my last 2 years here and look at this week in particular to see how we, not only what we do from a practice standpoint, but what we do from meetings, scheduling, things we may back off of, we might move forward with, and kind of playing that into this week's schedule as well. So we'll make some adjustments and tweaks to our schedule. I think our guys felt it yesterday. They'll feel it tomorrow when we come over and practice, and we'll go from there. With that, open up for questions.
But on Saturday or Friday, you said offensive line depth was a concern going into training camp. When did that become a concern, and why?
I don't know if it was going into training camp. I think when we became depleted, we lost Zai. For us, Des Schuster was a guy that we were planning on, even though it wasn't. We've had guys of his caliber come in and play. I think those two things in particular, we were really short at tackle. We had obviously Julian coming back. We were going to move Zai out to tackle, which was an unproven commodity, and then he wasn't even in the lineup through all fall camp. If I said fall, I didn't mean, but I meant going into the season. I think last spring when we recruited, we had 2 guys that were committed to us that are plug and play guys that are now playing at other schools that were committed to us. We lost that through the beautiful world we're all experiencing right now in recruiting. One of the things I do monitor is guys that that we had in our program that weren't able to follow through. So that's a little bit of that. But I think we were looking for answers, and then when we didn't get those answers had to come from within, we just don't have enough depth. Yeah, Des is a big dude, and because of what he's been suffering from, we haven't been able to do conditioning. So I think the big part of him is just going to be knowing the playbook, but also getting his body in a physical level to play. I don't think it would be this week. I don't know if it could be next week, but hopefully maybe on the back end of the bye week, you could probably hopefully look at something there.
Do you worry about guys pointing fingers, doing all that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've literally had dinner last night. I brought my Illini council and captains in to our staff room. We always have dinner in the building on Sunday. So we basically meet offense, defense, special teams, and then we usually take a dinner break and kind of take an hour to kind of just take a moment. We have football games going, guys eat in the building. We want to eat together. We call it family dinner after victory. We have it a victory meal, but that's not near as nice when we don't win. It's a lesser meal, but the brotherhood is there. So I brought in our Illini council and our captains. So it's about 15 guys. We kind of shot the breeze for a little bit. Then I kind of get into the meat and potatoes of anything from A to Z. I always say it's from the time you come in the parking lot till the time you leave, anything structurally, schematically, timing wise that we can talk through. And there were some good suggestions, but one of the things that has been very strong in that conversation, but also several individual conversations, is coach, from where we were when you got here to where we are now, just like the amount of that goes on, I think is at a minimum. I don't really see. There's guys that are frustrated. We're all frustrated. I thought Dylan Rosiak had a great quote about the pissed off feeling, right? Like that's him to a T, and that's a guy that is just continuing to build rapport in our building. I thought Casey had some really good comments after the game about focusing on the task at hand and focusing on himself. Isaiah Adams, I know, said some things in the locker room right after the game. Just the character we build upon is really, really strong. I'm not overly, share from the outside world, but I think the faith in our guys and in each other and our coaches is pretty strong, and I don't see that wavering.
Coach, when the season's kind of not going the way that you thought it would go, is there a feeling as a head coach that you want to take more control over game planning and play calling on game day, or is it you still lean pretty hard on the coordinators?
You know what? I don't. You can ask my coaches, but I've never called a game when we were, at this time a year ago, we were obviously 5-1. The year before that, we were 2-4. We're 2-4 once again. Obviously, I don't want to be where we're at, but it is what it is. And I would tell you that in all 3 seasons, my demeanor and my approach to how we game plan and what we do hasn't changed at all. I think offensively, defensively, there might be certain things each week that I feel like, hey, I really need to talk to them about this. I think in this case, Maryland, it's a dramatically different offense than what we just faced, right? So to have the game plans be in the same realm isn't really real. On defense, on the flip side, offensively, this is a group that has some carryover. And then, even though we didn't play him a year ago, the coordinator that's there now, he's been there the entire time with Locke. So there's a lot of carryover defensively since Mike's been there over the last 4 years. So I don't think so. I think the urge would be there, but again, this is my 15th year as a head coach. You hire good coaches to be good coaches, and that's what you got to do.
You mentioned about the maybe examining changes.
Mhm.
What's come of that in terms of those conversations?
Yeah, I would think, after any game, win or loss, you're going to have changes. You're going to have, but I think for us, particular on Saturday after we got done watching the film, Aaron, you're going to share it with you. Aaron actually left our building, I think, at 2 a.m. Saturday night, drove to Indy, flew home, buried his grandfather, came back late that night, so he was gone all Saturday. So, I didn't have much. I had interaction with the defense staff when we talked, but it was really got done with it. We met as a staff, and then I sat down with the offense and looked at the game. And I'd say 3 areas we looked at were schematics, personnel, and then also, obviously, in-game adjustments. That was our big three. And I think that's the same that you go through on a weekly basis because we're at a 2-4 team and we've struggled to put points on the board. It draws a little more attention. But I think we really got to, through 6 games, I think we know who our strengths are, but we also know probably what our weaknesses are. I think we got to do our best to maximize those strengths and minimize those weaknesses. And we say that a lot, but I think now, even 6 games into it, you can really hone in. Oh, okay, this guy can do this. He can't do that. And our guys have been fairly consistent in what they're doing. Isaiah probably Adams had his best play at right tackle. Julian played his best at left tackle. I think, Luke, obviously the one interception is totally unacceptable, but he'd been pretty good in making better decisions since the Penn State game in that regards. So it just gets frustrating. There's these little moments that costs everybody. I think just if we looked at 3rd down and 4th and 1, I made an edit of the game, but also of this season, and I made an edit of last year, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, and just looked at how we were to where we are and drew some conclusions from that. But they're all big things, but they're mild things. I think if you just look at them individually, things that you can easily be corrected.
Caden and Aiden probably having a bigger role Saturday. Is there anything particular this week that's important for them just to be ready?
Central Illinois' finest is going to be at full display on a big scale. Those 2 guys, man, are absolutely awesome to work with. Just relentless detail guys. I think they're really enjoying what game planning is. I don't know if they've ever really done that until this year because neither one of them, obviously Aiden was here, but he wasn't involved in the game plan. Caden, heck, he was playing quarterback last year, right, in his system. So I think the art of preparing for an opponent, understanding what they're going to do, what they're going to possibly see. They're both really good competitors. I think Thad's done an outstanding job kind of getting both of them in a position to be successful. And if Reggie can't go, it thrusts right on their shoulders, and I think they'll be ready for it.
All good. Brandon, are you pleasantly surprised when you're getting out of middle linebacker even on a night like Friday? We don't have Tyreek, but Dylan, KO, and Chuck Street seem to play really well.
Dylan has been consistently getting better every week. Kanena has been a guy that his addition last year he brought great energy. He's a pretty athletic kid. Obviously plays extremely hard. I thought him and Tariq both, and then Kreutz to get in there. There was a play. Well, actually, the play that Kanena stripped the ball on, Kreutz actually gets knocked down, right? And I showed to the offense or showed to the entire team yesterday that hey, this isn't a great play by James. He's struggling with a tight end. He comes underneath, but the tight end kind of knocks him down literally while Kanena is knocking the ball out. So why the ball goes to the ground, James is going to the ground, but James literally spends no time on the ground, jumps up and makes a fumble recovery, right? And I would say there's a lot of players in that position wouldn't have ever gotten up that fast and would have never made the fumble recovery because they had a bunch of guys around it. And again, just the whole idea of playing hard comes over, right? And I'm excited where those guys are. I think Tariq, especially the last 2 weeks, has been a little bit of a coach mode too, right? I think he's doing a really good job teaching those guys. Tariq's played a lot of football for us, so when he wasn't in there, he's been awesome. He's been a great voice. So I think again, some of that shows through. One of the things I really stressed the last 2 weeks was, obviously there's players that aren't here that were a major factor in our success a year ago, but it's voices more than anything. And Tariq has really stepped it up. I think Tariq and Tip Ryman in particular have stepped up. I thought Tip last week. On the play, there was a play that didn't get in the end zone right before we had the 2 short yardage stops. We ran a little reverse with Isaiah, and Tip literally sends the corner he was blocking into the first row of the stadium, and Henry kind of doesn't got his feet under control and allows a guy to slip under him. Otherwise, we don't even have those plays exist, right? And it's just frustrating for us in certain regards, but it also shows you how close we can be if we get our stuff taken care of. Yeah.
A few times.
Yeah.
How can you help usher that in? Or how does that
Yeah, I think if I had it to, not redo, but I think starting the last spring, you have so many players that have been good players for a long time, but they hadn't been the foreshadow of their rooms, right? So Palcho, for instance, he'd been there since 1957, right? So like his voice had been really strong in that room, and you're naturally processing into Julian Pearl and Isaiah, who have done a really good job, but they kind of just handled their own business. And now there's a whole room that needs guidance. And Josh Kreutz, who's absolutely awesome, great energy guy. He's literally becoming. Now this will be his 7th game that he started at this level, right? And I think at certain position groups, I wish I would have been more assertive about teaching what leadership is. We talk about it all the time in a big picture setting, and I think that the part that I've processed is you have to be a little bit more diligent with certain position groups when leaders leave, right, to what it is. I text John Snyder. I don't know if I told you that story. Like Spoon made a couple plays a couple weeks ago, and I text, hey, let me borrow Spoon. I'm not even going to play him, right? Like I just want his voice, right? And those are things that you can overcome with time, but sometimes it takes a little bit. We knew in the back end defensively, we got new faces that we're going to take a time to transition. Offensive line, even though we lost Pilstrom and Palcho, moving Zai to a different tackle position, bringing another starter in, 2 guys into the interior, like it was going to be different. And probably that was the hardest thing that we probably had to replace more than anything.
Those 2 special teams errors,
The block punt.
And then the block punt.
Yeah, the block punt, we were running a rugby type situation, and for whatever reason, Hugh decided to kind of take off. Tip is blocking the guy he's supposed to block, and he's expecting the ball to be punted on his inside shoulder. So, really an issue that hadn't popped up. No reason to pop up, but obviously we got to make a better decision out of it. And then the kickoff return, we chart those guys pre-practice when they're kicking that way. The ball was landing somewhere between 5 and 1 yard line, and then when that ball got hung up, Tip didn't even look at it, which caused him to move forward, and then the ball lands perfectly on the 20-yard line and goes straight back to them if it just goes any other direction. But we got to feel it was similar to some of the situations that we've had in the past here that we got to do a better job of. This is the third for a year for me being here. Like every year there's been a kickoff issue with that wind when it gets caught up in there, and we just have to put everybody on high alert when that happens. And then the second one, Tip took a step forward, but then he backed up too, which caused those guys to kind of react the way they did when he raised his hand as a fair catch. When one man raises his hand for fair catch, it's a fair catch for everybody. Yeah.
How well do you know Coach Loxley, and what do you think of what he's done in Maryland?
Yeah, Lox and I, honestly, are probably he's as close as I have in this business. Like a really, really. It wasn't so much when we were here. I was a young coach, a little full of myself back then, and I didn't like the way sometimes things went on the recruiting trail with Lox. And then really through some mutual friends, got introduced to one another, had a lot of fun, just kind of socially with each other. And then when he was at Alabama, we talked. Yeah, right. In Baltimore, we were looking for our car services to pick us up like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And I said, Lox, and he's like, Bielema? And then I'm standing there with Belichick, and he was trying to piece it all together in a matter of seconds. It was kind of funny. But good man. Respect him offensively. Just super, super high intelligent, He does a really good job. The way he recruits, the way he staff, all the players, all the coaches that I've been around that have worked for him, really enjoy working for him. Especially this Maryland thing. And then when I got here, a lot of people had common relationships with him, and then they found out we knew each other. I'll get an occasional FaceTime or call from someone that's visiting him, right? And they know that we're mutually connected. So a lot of respect for who he is and what he's done, and obviously a 501 football team. Thank you.